It'll be a big week, as we had mentioned, for tech earnings. The sector, though, already hit hard this week. Carter says there are a few names in the space that are flashing even bigger warning signs. Carter, take it away.
Well, it was a bad week for tech. I mean, not fatal, but tech worst sector on the week. And what we also know is we're approaching a record that was only set one time before, which is to say the sector, S&P 500 technology, has now gone 96 sessions without having 3 down days in a row. The longest stretch ever was 108. It was in the July to December period of 2004. And after it ended, tech dropped 15%, twice the rate of the market drop in the period. But anyway, let's look at a few charts. So what we know is that key tech stocks, and by inference, tech sectors, tech aggregates, are all breaking trend. So the first is Apple. Apple's a tremendous performer. We know it's up 26% year to date, but you can see there in that chart the well-defined trend line in effect since the March low and the break of trend. Take a look at Microsoft. It's really the same chart. It's really the same circumstance. An important stock, and these two make up 25%, of course, of the NASDAQ 100, but a break in trend. Now, the SOX, next chart, nothing to do with Apple and Microsoft. Again, same circumstance. A well-defined uptrend line in effect since the March low, and now a break of trend. And so if we see this in certain leading areas, then we see it in aggregate. So the next chart is the technology sector, the S&P 500 technology sector, having a great year, of course, up 15%. But here too, if the big constituents break trend, the sector you see here is breaking trend. And then two more. Take a look at the NASDAQ composite itself. The entire aggregate, if you will, dominated to a large extent by technology, breaking trend. And then the final chart, of course, the NASDAQ 100, which is the marquee names, the biggest and best, driven by Apple and Microsoft, the first two we looked at. And what do we see? The exact same circumstance. So is this the beginning of a more meaningful give back? The tech sector is down on a 3-4 day basis. Tuesday was the peak, right? 6%. Drawdowns of 10 and 12 are perfectly normal in high-flying, sort of higher excitement stocks that are embraced, crowded, loved, and the presumption is this break in trend is not over.
What outperforms in tech's stead while tech is on this 10 to 15% pullback?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, you know, I think that what we know is that in great periods, there's a lot of autocorrelation, right? That sort of they all behave the same. What I would be looking for are just one-off idiosyncratic names that aren't tied to the aggregates. Because is it the tail that wags the dog? Is it just people selling the QQQ and then the big stocks get caught up in it, or vice versa? I would say semis, and yet we saw what happened to Intel today. And so it's picking your own favor, whether it's Team or Okta, one of these high flyers that's maybe on its own. Two I like in particular would be Now and Salesforce.com, CRM.
All right, Carter, thank you. We'll see you later on Options Action. Carter Braxton Worth at Cornerstone Macro. Brian Kelly, do you like any of Carter's suggestions there?
So I like ServiceNow. I mean, that stock has just been absolutely on fire. CRM would be another one that he mentioned in there. So I think if you want to try to hide in someplace, again, you know, if the market's going to go down 15%, almost all stocks are going to go down, right? But I still like these kind of cloud plays. I think they continue to do well. I mean, alternatively, if you can, Jeff, I think mentioned the staples. You know, if we are going to get this sell-off, it could be precipitated by a weaker dollar. Mm-hmm. So maybe they get some tailwind on that. So that's the way that I would kind of play this and hide out.
I thought it was interesting that the chartmaster didn't say, you know, this sector will outperform when tech underperforms or when tech has this pullback. He said it's going to be idiosyncratic names, Jeff Mills, because you don't know if this is the sign of weakness for the broader markets or a sign of weakness just for this particular sector.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think I mentioned it at one point. I didn't really give you a great answer because I'm concerned about the cyclical trade. I mentioned that it's losing momentum at its downward sloping resistance. But then on the other hand, you have all this crowding that took place in tech. So the question is, where do you go? What do you do? I think about semiconductors as an example, and I think about an Intel where the quarter actually wasn't awful, and now you sort of know what's wrong, and the stock very quickly priced in a 15% decline, and now it's trading at a valuation at 10 times forward earnings, where the stock has been well supported over the past couple of years. So again, looking idiosyncratically at certain names that may have already been punished and you can get a good valuation, that may be a good strategy. I think interestingly for us in the way we're positioned at Bryn Mawr Trust, I think about our 3 largest holdings, and they are Amazon, Apple, and Microsoft, but they are also our 3 biggest underweights relative to the benchmark. So when you think about that and trying to maintain some diversification in a market where the index is just getting more and more lopsided.
Bonawyn, do you like Intel considering where it's pulled back to? I mean, the context, of course, is that the NASDAQ 100, along with the break in trend, I mean, it's sitting at a valuation, a PE, that is the highest in 2 decades.
So am I out of the penalty box now?
Yeah. Me calling on you and allowing you to speak is you out of the penalty box.
You might actually
Yes,
be
ma'am.
back in it now.
You know what? Honestly, I'm a bit cautious on Intel. Listen, the stock has rolled over 15-16%. It's broken its trend, and yes, we can speak to valuation, and I'm not going to knock that whatsoever. However, I'm going to be following the trend until I find a support level. I'm going to have to stick on the sidelines.